Hi, and welcome to Legally Insane News. I'm your host, Kyle O'Donnell. Find and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Kyle O'Donnell, and head over to legallyinsanefilms.com to listen to my other podcasts, to read my books and articles, to check out my photos from around the world, and to watch my documentary films. Again, that's legallyinsanefilms.com. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in here on this one. And by the way, this episode is also available in video. To see that version, head over to smalltownjusticepodcast.com and click join the fan club. This is not the normal kind of podcast that I do. For those new to the show, those new listeners out there, I normally focus on small town crime, but I was so heated after I saw Will Smith's indignant ass roll up on stage and physically assault Chris Rock that I decided to kind of break ranks. And I recorded a conversation that I had with a friend of mine the day after Smith slapped Rock at the Oscars. And I never published it in full, just snippets. And I kind of used it to spark some responsible debates on social media about whether men should be expected to defend their women in today's society. I mean, there's a lot of changes on the gendered horizon, right? Like some women these days even get offended at a guy holds the door open for them because they're strong enough to do it themselves and all that. So like there was a dichotomy that existed between his opinion and mine. Like my opinion was that that Smith was a funny guy. I mean, like, who the hell slaps Chris Rock? Is one of the funniest people I know. He's just like, he's the least threatening person I know too. I mean, he was standing up on, I'll let you get it. I'll play the thing for you, but I don't want to get too far into that because I'm going to go ahead and publish that conversation along with this most recent news that went down Friday, that Smith apologized publicly, because I think that's, that conversation that I had is relevant now even more than when I first recorded it. So obviously today's talk is going to be about Will Smith publicly apologizing. If you haven't seen this, I'll publish a snippet of the audio with this podcast and I'll let you go watch the full thing for yourself on his Instagram account. So just go into Instagram and search Will Smith. It's probably in the headlines anyway. Now this is a personal issue to me, and this is one of the reasons that I broke ranks and recorded something about it where it kind of took precedence. And again, I never published it in full, but it's personal because I've been publicly verbally accosted by a friend of mine in the past. And I know that's not the same thing as being slapped by a guy who thought I was attacking his wife, but I think principally the example is still on par with what's expected of men these days. And so to describe that situation with me, I had a friend named Charles, and we were cracking jokes about each other, and I bought him a couple of drinks, and he was getting a little lit. I didn't notice how drunk he was, but I made a comment, and he took it as a racist comment. I didn't call him black, or I didn't call him like fat or stupid or like ugly. I just pointed out that he was black. That's all it was, right? And he just lost it. He went off about 200 years of proud, history in America and yada yada. I'm like, guy, it's two people having a joke here. And he basically went on this screaming tirade in the middle of this bar, got everybody's attention. He slandered me in that bar for a very maybe 3 or 4 very uncomfortable moments where everyone in the bar was looking at him scream at me and basically make me out to be some Nazi sympathizer or something. I mean, he was really trying to go at me. And I gave no response. I stood there, I let him finish his piece. And after he'd gotten the attention of the entire bar, I announced that I was going to go take a piss, and I left them standing there in the hush room with all of the eyes on him. So that was my role in it. I kind of couldn't believe that he took that track, but whatever. What I should have done, and probably what I would have done or would do if I had the opportunity to kind of relive that moment and experience it again, would have been to point out that regardless who said what to whom, none of it was in anger, and he was a grown man standing there screaming at another grown man making a fool of himself in a bar. And these people they don't know what the hell's going on. They don't know what's being said. All of a sudden, they just see this man screaming, erupting in the middle of everything. I would have pointed that out. I would have said that the minute we can no longer just talk about things and resort to shouting matches, that we're limiting how other people can approach us, right? We're telling everyone these conversations are off limits. We can't have them. If you do, I'll get pissed at you. I'll scream at you and act like a fucking 4-year-old. And there should be no subject out of bounds for that discussion. None. Never. We should always be able to talk about things, because when the discussion stops, battles begin. And if discussion never picks back up, those battles eventually turn into wars. And everybody knows of an example of how someone bottles something up and all of a sudden it takes like a tiny little thing to set them off, and it's an all-out war. You know, principally speaking, it always happens the same way, but in different circumstances. And it always turns into wars. And nobody lets go. Nobody lets down their pride and admits defeat or apologizes. Now, having said that, later when I saw Charles the next morning, he did apologize. We were both sitting at breakfast. It was a communal thing we were living at the time, but I thanked him for his apology, and in that very same breath acknowledged that it takes a, certain kind of fella to affront someone in public and apologize in private. And he didn't like that. He was not pleased. And I think deep down that's because he knew I was right. He didn't say anything about it. He just looked at me just instantly. This whole, I think he drummed it up in his mind, like, I'm going to apologize to this guy and make things right. And he didn't think any further about that. He just automatically assumed that it was my job to accept his apology. And I suppose I did, but he called me a racist in front of people that I was working with. They probably, to this day, probably think I'm a racist. Who knows? But it was not my job to accept his apology, and I pointed that out. And maybe I did. Again, I can't really put myself emotionally in that same place that I was emotionally then. But I pointed out that if someone accosts someone in public, they need to apologize in public. And this is probably what I liked the most about Will Smith's apology to Chris Rock. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that while I believe Will Smith to have been sincere in his apology, I don't think he was... I think there was a little bit of acting, but I don't think it was a lot. I think that, I think the world got a real visage into the private thoughts and the mannerisms and how Will Smith at home kind of presents himself the same type of way he does with his family and friends, like no cameras around, that kind of thing. It might even have been filmed at his house. I don't know. I think he went a little overboard a couple of times when he apologized to like Jada and, his other family members, because like surely they've been given an apology already. Like if he's sitting there, in a nationally shown tweet, he knows whatever he says on Twitter is going to probably hit the news if it's impactful. You don't get to that point to answer for your actions and not already have had that conversation with your family, right? So to apologize again, I think that was a little showy to them. It's just speculation, right, on my part. So I have to admit that. But so I don't think those particular instances were genuine. But I think the rest of it was genuine. I'll say that I was not on Will Smith's side at the beginning. I mean, oddly enough, there were a lot of people that were. My friend, who you'll hear from today, was on his side. He's like, chivalry's dead. Men need to stand up for their women, that kind of thing. And I'll say this as well. Even though I wasn't on his side at the beginning, I'm kind of still not on his side now, even after he's apologized. I guess I'm just pointing out that I respect that he is apologizing, because even in the wake of an apology, it doesn't change what he did. In the end, however, he did something that even my friend Charles couldn't and didn't do. He publicly apologized, and it seemed to me that he was being honest. So that's kind of like the jumping off point for this episode. Now, whether or not that honesty was generated as a result of losing millions of dollars on lost movie deals and generally having to live like a hermit for fear of public backlash, that he probably would have received going out anywhere. They didn't treat him very well on social media. And whether he apologized in a fashion I do think was genuine, but whether or not that genuine apology was generated as a result of all this time he spent thinking about it. Obviously he's had to think about it because he's lost millions of dollars and probably been ostracized in certain circles, kicked out of the Oscars, you name it. All of that remains to be seen, because let's face it, like the night that he, within, I don't know how hours, I don't know how long the Oscars party is, but I'll say within an hour or two of slapping a man on national television, actually global, a global show, he was like singing and dancing and waving his little award around and stuff. He like did not come across as apologetic at that time. I think it would have been on my mind, just as a person, getting honored that night. At that time, the only thing on Will Smith's mind was, ooh, look at me, I won this award. He didn't give half a shit about all the people that he disrespected. But he points out a few of those things, and I think he reads a few key questions that have come up to him over the course of the social media backlash. So I'll go ahead and play that clip now and then move right on into the conversation that I had with my friend about that original incident.
Why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk, and when he is, he will reach out. So I will say to you, Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults. After Jada rolled her eyes, did she tell you to do something? No. It's like, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history with Chris. Jada had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, babe. I'm gonna say sorry to my kids and my family for the heat that I brought on. To all my fellow nominees, this is a community. It's like I won because you voted for me, and it really breaks my heart to have stolen and tarnished your moment. What would you say to the people who looked up to you before the slap, or people who expressed that you let them down? Disappointing people is my central trauma. I hate when I let people down. So it hurts. The work I'm trying to do is I am deeply remorseful, and I'm trying to be remorseful without being ashamed of myself, right? I'm human, and I made a mistake.
Okay, so that was the clip. I'll let you judge for yourself whether or not you think that's a genuine thing, but I'll move right on into the conversation that I had with my friend. I'll play that now.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's lazy leadership. I don't disagree with that. Well, anyway, bridging that with our initiative this evening.
Mm-hmm. Initiatives.
How do we start this?
Well, I think you were talking about the Will Smith slap. I wasn't sure if you were still on that.
Yeah, the sheer douchebaggery. I lost so much respect. I don't even really have much respect. I mean, he's like Will Smith to me. He's always been a little weird, kind of goofy, kind of like Urkel, but the like one rung up on the ladder, you know. But he didn't bug me up until recently. I mean, I know he's a Scientologist, but he's been quiet about it. He hasn't been a Scientologist bastard like the rest of them.
Yeah.
And so
it's got to be a weird world anyway. Like if you're in Scientology, you're in a world all your own.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, when you look at the movies he makes, like iRobot and I Am Legend, things like that, these are all like super crazy sci-fis that perfectly seat themselves well, probably in the back of his mind's eye, like kind of projecting himself into the Scientological realm or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, I can't even speak. I don't even know Scientology. Like, I know how it formed and all that stuff, but I don't know like what they teach on the inside of their thing. But it's L. Ron Hubbard's most successful con. I get that. Yeah, I understand all that.
Yeah, it's a layered cult, is what it is.
I literally don't know what's going on behind the walls, so I can't actually speak to any of that stuff.
Well,
I don't like most religions anyway, but yeah, that one just seems kind of a little out there.
So the only part about Scientology that is really important to this debate, and I'm separating this from the fucking weirdness of it, okay? Like, so the weirdness is important, but like, just leave that one aside for now. The only part of it that's really, germane to our discussion is that they deal with conflict through violence. That's the yeah. I mean, when you go up against the church, they send people out to harass you, and I'm not being like metaphorical about that, right? I mean, they literally create a campaign of harassment.
Well, actually, so I finished a book not too long ago, and this book has been haunting me for a while. It's called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And it's an amoral look at the history of how humans interact with each other. And that means like just taking all the be kind to each other and the golden rule. If you take all of that stuff out of the picture, how do human beings actually fuck each other up and use hierarchy and power and manipulation and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Because we do it all the time. It's just underneath the blanket. So I read that a while ago, and I'm like, oh God, this is an awful book. I can't stand this. But ever since I read the book, I can't stop seeing it. And it really makes me think about courtesans, because he talks about the court a lot. And I think that's bred into us, like being a part of the court, the hierarchies of human beings. And now that you bring up Scientology as like almost like its own court in a way, where it has its own king, and Tom Cruise, I guess, is the king. And
he's the Joker.
And anyway,
the jester.
It has, if you don't pay your taxes, they send the knights out to raid your lands or whatever. I don't know, but it is about sort of violence and stuff like that. And in that, reputation is everything. In that world of hierarchies that we do exist in, reputation is everything. And
you know why?
Just like
does it explain why?
What's that?
Does it explain why?
Yes, it does explain why in the book.
Does it have to do with the fact that we don't have power, but we're given power, and our reputation determines how much of that we get?
Well, your reputation determines how people are going to act before they meet you. So, because literally everyone's out for themselves. In a certain sense, everybody wants something from somebody else, whether it's an alliance of power, so if they need help, they can call on you and whatever, you'll back them up. Or they need funds, or they need access, or they need something. I don't know what it is, but we all need something from someone. That's why we have friends and all of that stuff. And believe me, when I talk about this stuff, it's not how I think, but it's the mechanisms of how people mostly operate. So anyway, what the point that I wanted to get to in all of this is there are several types of violence in the world. And there's one that we're talking about, which is physical violence, and that he slapped a guy. I'm going to say that didn't help him. And one of the funny thing about the 48 laws is they all conflict each other. There's no way that you can actually still just follow certain laws and still do anything right.
Kind of like 10 felonies.
You have to be able to use them or understand them. And if you do use them, you use them like tools in the toolbox. But you can't just use one all the time. You can't just say, I'm going to be violent all the time. That's not going to work for you. And what he showed is that he lost control of his emotions. And when high-powered people do that, then people see that they're not in control. And like Napoleon Bonaparte, when he lost control, everybody saw it, and that's literally when his empire fell. Is when he started to get emotional and start yelling at people. People could see that, his empire, it was all getting to him, and he was losing control of his emotions. So that's what we're seeing with Will Smith. His pride, his vanity, all of that stuff. However, I'm going to play the pro here. He's also protecting his wife's reputation. He's protecting his family. And he actually said that. That was literally coming out of him. He's like, I have to protect my family. And it didn't work. So I'm not gonna stand up for him. None of this stuff worked.
Well, actually, what I thought was interesting about your response, and we're talking like for reference here, what spawned this conversation was your response on the Instagram comment that I made. I mean, I said all kinds of shit, but the thing that struck the chord for me was you were like, chivalry is dead and he's reigniting it.
To an extent, yeah. I think that, okay, I will say that in my life, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but due to many factors of feminism, men have changed.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
Of course,
oh, yeah.
We don't feel like we want to be a bad guy, right? So we've developed this nice guy syndrome where we keep trying to please everybody and be a nice guy and think that that's going to get us where we're going. And I sort of have this problem. I'm watching... I don't think that anything that Chris Rock said was actually in any way, shape, or form hurtful or even good. I think the joke sucked. But what I have seen happening is that because physical violence is now taken out of the picture and it's taboo, people think that they can use another kind of violence, which is talking about people. So reputational
violence.
Bullshit, my own divorce. I watched my life get eviscerated, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't hit anybody. I can't get emotional. I just, watch my life get eviscerated. If you go to high school, like someone he said, she said, it's all talking about people. That form, to me, that's just as violent as hitting someone because it can destroy someone's life. So, I kind of like the fact that he stood up for his wife and slapped a person. It's kind of like you don't fucking talk about somebody's wife. And he did it publicly. And I think that it's more important. Now, personally, he should have just said something and said, hey, don't talk about my wife, or pulled Chris Rock aside behind the thing, Personally, he should have done something else. But I like the fact that he did it publicly, because we have some problems that need to be addressed. One is talking shit about people is still violence. You know, that old saying, sticks and stones break your bones, but words will never hurt you, is complete bullshit. We watch people tearing other people down all the time. Why? Because it works.
No, I disagree. Like, I got to stop. So here's my issue with that. Okay. It only, just like nobody on this planet has power. Like the essence of power is, leverage over another person or a group of people, right? That's the only thing power actually represents, because if you're on a desert island, you're all by yourself, there's no such thing as power. The only thing power has is a construct of enablement over someone else, an entitlement over someone or a group of other people. That's the only thing it means. So if you boil that down to its basic principles, you don't really have power. You only have what other people give you, which in its sense, philosophically speaking, is not power at all. You know, it's actually the people that have the power that they gave to you or entrusted to you for a period of time till you fuck it up, in which case we saw that happen. So but here's the flip side to that coin, right? The other part that's so crucial that nobody really understands, like cancel culture aside, I'll address that in a second. You only can have your life destroyed by, you know, we're talking about jokes, rumors, gossip, you know, shit talking, as you said. You only get your life destroyed if you allow that to happen. That's it. You were witness to a really shitty situation that I was thrust into, right? Where someone had literally disseminated a package of lies, disseminated to the most important people in the university who had any deciding leverage over my career, my status, my academic future at the university, right?
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, I would say that it did cause damage, did it not?
I don't think so. I graduated. The whole point of that was to kick me out of the university. The whole point of that was to damage my...
Well, I'm sitting here watching people, you know, like, why do we have politics? Why do we have sniping? I would say it's there because it works. You know, like, your life would have been different if you still graduated, yes, in spite of the powers that be. You know what I mean? But you went through a lot of stress, adversity, and all of that stuff. Those are powers. That was power being held against you. Right?
There was a little bit of, I mean, I don't want to minimize the stress, right? That was stress that this individual absolutely wanted to inflict on me. However, and I've got another important point that I might as well just move into now. She did it to herself too, because, you know, she was trying to get me fired and kicked out of the university, and ultimately she herself got fired, shamed. She was not hired at the court that she wanted to get hired at. Like, she ruined her own reputation. Like,
that's true.
And that's what happened to Will Smith. Will Smith wanted to basically he wanted to embarrass him, shame him, put him on the spot, and inflict basically the most harm he could, and still allow him to walk out of there.
Without a doubt.
And that's what happened to Will Smith.
World, and the old ways aren't working. But again, I understand everything that you said, but I still feel that there is this, as I lay it out, you know, like, to me, violence is something that you do to someone else that reduces their existence, their ability to have a job, their ability to feel about them. Now, it's up to them to a certain point how they feel about themselves, but you cannot divorce how you feel about yourself from what's happening to you in your environment. You can respond in a way that makes you feel better about yourself. That's fine, and I totally
What makes you think you can't divorce yourself? Hold that thought. Legally Insane News. We'll be right back. What makes you think you can't divorce yourself from that? What makes you like?
Because it's still happening to you. You're not an independent entity on a stage. You can do that in your mind, and that can make you feel all right. But these things still happen to you, right?
You're talking about, okay, so define things, because what you're talking about is essentially gossip, right? Like reputational claims against you. That's really what you're talking about, right?
Not only that, but like if it's even illegal. Some libel and slander can be illegal if it causes harm, right?
Okay, so it has to be tangible, though. This is extremely hard to prove in court because you have to prove intent. You have to have.
I'm not trying to prove it in court, though.
Well, listen. Well, there's a court of like so like effectively a court establishes the standard for all of it. So if it's not measurable, right? Like who was that guy that this poor fucking journalist who had this girl like Anderson Cooper, right? Wouldn't this girl like went after him because he wouldn't leave his wife or something? I can't remember what the details were, but
I don't think Anderson Cooper is. I think he's gay. So
no,
I don't think it's
whoever it was. It was an announcer, CNN, like top level. I'm not a big, I don't keep up with the like mainstream news, so I don't know. But in any case, she went after him because he wouldn't leave his wife for him or something like that, and she like went after his career. And
that sounds familiar. Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
he was. I don't know if he was fired or forced to quit or something. That was like an extreme example of cancel culture, where a network didn't stand behind their boy or girl or whatever. It's not about sex really. Lately, it has been more in the post Weinstein reality, but. But, and it was totally unnecessary, just totally unnecessary.
But like, you're still like hitting the point here is to me, violence is still being done. Now, whatever a person decides to feel when it is done, that's up to them. And I hope that they find a way to not let it affect them and have an attitude of like, oh, I will survive this and I'll be fine. But that doesn't change the fact that things like cancel culture and social media has become actually a huge part of this. Like gossip and reputation bashing, social distortion has always been around. And I would even dare say that women do it far better than men. And they do it because it works.
Well, again, like I don't think so. So okay, let's talk about how big the world is, right? I mean, we're talking like when you say destroy someone's life, you're saying they might as well be dead, right? But like the opportunity still exists to like find a new community or like just like cut the ties and sever the umbilical cord and take off, go somewhere else. Like those things exist, but complete destruction of someone's life is not possible through words.
Okay, so I'm being hyperbolic, but I still will say like they do it because it changes a person. It puts them under stress, and it changes. And when you hurt somebody's reputation, other people might not come to that person for a job. Other people might not come to that person for a romantic partner.
Well, see, now you're talking about the court standard of it, because those things are tangible and measurable. If someone has lost actual money as a result of what someone else said that was in fact not true, that then is a suable offense, I'll call it.
Who's going to do that for most of these accounts? Most people don't do that.
It happens all the time.
Lawyers cost money.
It happens all the time.
It may happen all the time, but lawyers cost money and all of that stuff. And I'm still not advocating for violence, physical violence. I'm not advocating for what Will Smith did. I just think that what he did still brings up something that bothers me. That people think that physical violence is somehow different than the social smearing and reputation bashing that, to me, can be just as damaging. So if I were to walk up to someone, I'm not going to say you're a big guy, I don't want to do that. But if I were to
You're
walk
bigger
up
than
to
I am.
somebody and I slapped them in the face, what would that do to them? It would hurt their self-esteem. It would slightly physically hurt their body. It would maybe even make them feel that they were lesser on the hierarchy, and maybe not go for things. I don't know how they respond. Still is up to them, right? But still, the intent is to reduce the person's power. The same thing happens all the time in other ways, and I don't see an equality in how laws are applied. You know, like we banish people to prison for assaults, but we don't banish people to prison if they do something. And yes, liable and stuff is still there, but not. I don't think it's punished in the same way.
But you know
And
why,
I think
right? You
that
know,
in our culture, we see roasting and we see social bullying and all sorts of things that still aren't prosecuted. And like, how do you even prosecute them? I can't even imagine how to prosecute all this stuff. I'm not even saying that we should even. I just want to have that conversation that I think a lot of people out there just go, ooh, physical violence bad, but literally they're talking shit about other people, trying to destroy their reputation in the same breath that they're having in this conversation.
yeah,
You know
but
what I mean?
it's nebulous. Like when you're talking about hitting someone, there's a physical act and there's a physical response. When you talk about, you know, let's contextualize it, right? Like I talk shit about triplets, right? Let's just put it into like some weird literal context. Like there are three people, were born all three of them within a minute, right? Psychologically, physically, biologically, physiologically, that kind of makes them all the same person, right? Let's say I talk shit about each one of them the exact same way. They're all male, whatever. But like what they're going to do is have psychologically different responses to that. One is going to take it internally and get depressed and, I don't know, go jump off a bridge. Another one is going to fight you or like, you know, fight back or whatever. The third one is going to, I don't know, go cry to mommy or something and then like get over it or blow it off or whatever. That is why there is no measurable way to deal with it, to handle it in the courts, because it's nebulous. And here's the other challenging factor to this. As a journalism professor, it does not, offense alone does not trump the First Amendment to the Constitution. And it never will, or at least it shouldn't. It has started to, right? Like what you're actually saying when you say that's creating physical harm to someone is a very slippery slope. And we kind of got into this a little bit on Instagram, but it's text, you know, there's a lot lost in that. And the factor that will always be more important than you being able to be offended is your right to offend someone else, because it's so nebulous, because it's so immeasurable, and because one person is going to react to it completely differently than another one. So
and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have that right. Sometimes I even think that we should have some rights to even get in fights. I'm a little on the other side on that one.
Oh, we do. As long as you voluntarily engage in a physical altercation, there's nothing anybody can do about it. You agreed to be in it.
Yeah, I'm like, if somebody gets in a bar fight, that's their decision.
Yeah.
You know, like that. Nobody should be arrested in that. And if somebody dies in that bar fight, they both chose to get into it. Now, if somebody physically attacks somebody who doesn't want to be attacked, that's different. You know, to me, that's when the police should step in and things should happen. So, like, I don't agree with the courts, because if somebody dies in a bar fight, that's manslaughter, and people go to prison for that now.
Yeah. Well, nobody. I'm not gonna say nobody wants that because you can't.
There are people that just want to they're sickened by violence itself.
Yeah.
And they just want to banish it all. You know what I mean?
Well, let's talk about why. So one of the things that really grabbed me about this is that Chris Rock, to me, and this is kind of weird because it's out of left field. He's one of these characters that's like you wouldn't expect to have. I don't know what you would expect. I'll put it in my own context. I think Chris Rock is a black comic who managed to act astride some of the biggest white names in Hollywood, right? Like this is something like he's one of the most successful stand-up comics of all time. He's a friggin' household name as a result of it. I think he's someone who's also managed to never even have so much as a bad rumor floating around about him. And I've never heard anything, for all intents and purposes. Chris Rock basically contributed more to American culture than almost any actor you or I can think of. Like most actors have not done what he's done, and he's done it just being himself. I think when you compare that to, let's do all of that. Let's remember all of that. And then let's reverse the roles. Chris Rock walks up and slaps Will Smith. As far as I'm concerned, I think the same thing about Chris Rock as I now do about Will Smith. He spent 40 years building up his career from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and now the only thing I can remember about what he contributed is being a fucking douchebag. And that's it. That's all I will ever remember of that man.
Well, I get it. And I totally understand that. I mean, I've never. I don't think I said some stuff on social media. I think I'm more intrigued, and I'm trying to get back to it. I agree with you, without a doubt, that in that situation it was fucking all terrible, and without a doubt he shouldn't have done it. It does show how entitled he is. And just the different world she's living in. And my mother even brought up that maybe because he was acting, the Oscar that he won was for King Richard. And the guy, Venus and Serena's father, is a kind of a strange dude. And that he's kind of a little bit narcissistic, a little bit controlling, highly manipulative, all of these things. I mean, they made a great film about how he spurned them to be great people, but there's also some sinister stuff in that. And it's almost like if Will Smith is a method actor and he's starting to pick up on all of these little details, that maybe his brain literally kind of lost itself. You know what I mean? And this is indicative also of Hollywood, of these people. And you are correct. These people are so high up there that they're not even touching the ground anymore. And so, without a doubt, all of it's wrong. And I'm not standing up for Will Smith, and I think he did nothing but hurt himself. But when people, and I have seen a lot of people come out in social media and completely try to tank someone, in the same way that we're talking about Will Smith, I've seen the same reaction to somebody who didn't cause physical violence. And to me, that cancel culture, social media, reputation bashing is happening because it has a power. I mean, we've seen CEOs, directors of universities, all sorts of people getting fired because of all of these opinions that somebody says something is wrong.
Yes, but you have to put it into context. Who is enacting? Who is creating action? Okay, so you've got the I'll call it the status quo, the people that watch your program or vote or own stock in your whatever, right? And then you've got the people, the bosses, the board members, the whomevers, the VPs of whatever, right? Those are the only two people, the only two, I'll say, groups that really wield power. The person, it's not, maybe it's not Anderson Cooper, but I'm going to pick on Anderson Cooper here a little bit, and I'm going to apologize in advance if it's the wrong guy. But let's just say Anderson Cooper was the guy who managed to have sex with somebody who was a fucking psycho, and this psycho goes and she takes to social media. The social media hits viral because, of course, he had butt sex with this girl. Like, that's news apparently these days. I don't know. So it's the crowd, and it's Anderson Cooper's boss. But outside of that, Anderson Cooper doesn't have anything to do with that. In fact, I think when it came down to it, the article that I remember reading about it was him. I felt so fucking bad for this guy when I was reading this report. He's basically like, my biggest mistake was staying silent and saying, nope, my privacy is mine. You don't have a right to get like who I have sex with is my business, not yours. And he said his biggest mistake was that. He said he should have come out right at the beginning and just like laid it out on the line, because like everything this girl was lying about, which did come out, I think he stitched up his career and was made whole kind of as a result of that. But it wasn't him. It was his boss, and it was the crowds. Those are the people who cancel culture really talks to the most. It's the people that aren't involved, or the people that the targets of this. They are the ones who are kind of like, they watch this thing unfold around them. It's like fighting a tidal wave or something. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to have any pull.
Yeah, and I think though, like when I'm watching that, my initial response, and sometimes I guess I miss the primitive part of ourselves, and there's a part of the modern world that I hate, and it's that I can't fight back. It makes me like, there are times in my life I just want to go slap the shit out of somebody, because I'm like, fucking stop talking shit about me and my family. Like, you fucking do it again, I'm going to hurt you. And in the old Wild West days, that shit worked. Like growing up in a small Texas town, that shit works. You hear somebody talking shit about your family, you hear somebody talking shit about your wife, you fucking punch them in the face.
Yeah.
Why? Because it works. And you need to get people to stop talking about your family, because it hurts your family.
Well, it only hurts your family if I get what you're saying, right? When you say you get what I see where you're coming from, but my response to that is, I see where you're coming from, but Anderson Cooper could have gone to any other news station. He could have started his own blog. He could have done 1,000 things and been like, no, I'm washing my hands of you assholes. I'm not giving you power. The only reason that Trump supporters,
if you can though, like, imagine people like my small Texas town that I grew up in. Many of the people there think they can't leave, and maybe they can't. Maybe they don't have the resources to leave. Maybe they don't have the money to leave. Maybe they're just struggling, and any little slight to their family could like literally mean the end for their family. There is no getting up and leaving. There can be times, and I do believe this, I think that we are becoming more conscientious as a human race, and I think that that's what the modern world is. However, I still think that there's some things that we're forgetting, and there's some things that are just plain reasonable. and it's like, I understand, sure, you can walk away sometimes, but in my life growing up with the bullies that I had, I couldn't walk away. I had to go back to the same school with them. You know what I mean? So they could talk about me, they could do all this shit. They even would hit me and stuff like that. And I tried to walk away, but I couldn't, because I didn't have an out.
I'm gonna give you that. I'm gonna give you that. I'm just gonna.
I learned that I could turn the other cheek, but God ain't coming. So I learned to fight. I learned, all right, if you're gonna fucking hit me, I'm gonna hit you back.
Yeah.
And when I started doing that, it started getting less. Because if you let psychopaths take anything from you, they'll continue to do it. And when you're out of options, like I don't think that Will Smith is so stressed out and poor that he doesn't have options. So yes, he fucked up. But it's something primal in us that, like, if you're, imagine a more primal, less modern person, it's in us that whenever somebody comes to take your cattle, I read this article once, and like, where does aggression come from? You know, if you live in a rural area and you have cattle, they're the only ways that you survive, and somebody comes to steal your cattle, why do you kill them? Well, you could shoo them away and do all sorts of stuff, but you have to send, or kill them or hurt them severely. You have to send a message to everyone else in the next town that nobody fucks with you. Because if anybody else comes to take your cattle, there aren't cops out there. There's nobody out there. So it's you against them. And that's where our primordial aggression comes from, you know, where we have to send a message. And to me, the slap in the face is a message. Do not fuck with my family. I feel that as maybe a Texan and a man and a person who's been through the he said, she said bullshit, and a person who grew up with severe bullies, all of that stuff. I've learned to say out loud, do not fuck with me or I will hurt you. And that is something that's looked down upon now, especially in what we're talking about is not a small Texas town anymore. We're talking about an entire nationalistic view of a moral code. And I think that nationalistic view of a moral code does not allow certain people to protect themselves in certain situations, because that moral code is generalized. It doesn't understand individuals and their daily life. And when the people talking shit on Facebook and whatever stuff about this moral code condemn somebody else for slapping somebody, and I'm not going to use Will Smith, I'm going to say Joe Blow, living in small town Texas, slapped some guy because somebody was talking about his wife. When people condemn that guy, when that guy has barely anything left and he's holding his family together with every fucking ounce of his energy, and he slaps some guy for talking shit about his wife, they don't understand the situation that guy's in. You know, like, he's literally doing everything he can to hold his family together so that any slight that comes from the outside is bad. Now, not only that, the moral code is now becoming law. The moral code that we have nationalistically going is law. So now somebody talks shit about your family, you're barely holding your shit together, you can't hit that guy anymore. So now you just have to let them talk shit about your family, or you talk shit about their family. You know, like, it's kind of getting weird. But that's just kind of how I see it.
Oh, okay. So there's a pretty big hole in the boat that you just floated, right? The first one is that we've seen examples of this throughout history, not even all that far into the past, actually. The what was that West Virginia feud between the two families?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. The Hatfields and the McCoys.
McCoy. They literally shot each other over. Right.
Yeah,
but
that is true.
The hole in the boat is, we are supposed to be progressive. We're supposed to be evolving from whatever that moral code was that you said, okay, you insulted my sister. Now you and I are going to do 10 paces, turn and shoot. Right. Mm-hmm. That is no longer in play for a very good reason. And we're supposed to be moving forward from that. But the other part that when you take it out of...
My question is, though, when you say that, is I know that. But my question is, can we move forward from that?
Well, I mean, that delves into a nature versus nurture argument, and that's an endless. That's like a whole season on the True Crime Network or something like that. I think that when you take it out of the context that we're talking about and you put it into the backwoods everyman scenario of the Old West, that issue stays the same. We're supposed to be learning. We're supposed to be moving. Now let's move it into the current context where Will Smith, Chris Rock, for all intents and purposes, they want for nothing. Okay. They on a Tuesday afternoon, they can go buy 5 $3 million yachts just because it's Tuesday. Like, that should be the pinnacle of our human evolution, because there's nothing standing in the way. Like, if one talks shit about the other guy's wife, he can pay enough money. He has enough money to disappear. He has enough money to never worry about his reputation causing him financial problems. He's got enough money that he can, wait 6 months, hire a hitman to kill Chris Rock and never have to worry about it. Like, there's not that that's civilized and kind of flies in the face of what I'm saying, but you do like that. They should represent the pinnacle of social evolution, and yet they do the exact opposite. He walked up there flaunting privilege and expecting absolutely no response whatsoever.
I don't think that he was expecting anything. I think he was just emotional.
No, man. Like,
he was thinking. I don't think that any thought went through his
like,
head.
he had 20 steps. He had to climb upstairs.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
He had to walk over to the man. You stay mad for days?
I stay angry for fucking days.
Yeah, but you
don't go out sometimes.
You don't walk up to people and hit them, though. You actually stayed home. You just mentioned that when you're angry, you don't do aggressive activity.
You wouldn't see me at the Oscars. So I stay away from people for that specific reason.
Well, maybe there's a concern that, frankly, I know you, I trust you, but based on what you said, if you can't be trusted not to enact violence on someone, I don't know. Maybe that attitude is the problem. Maybe that's what you're connecting to with Will Smith that no one else seems to be connecting to. Because, like in the last week, just the last week, I haven't even tried to pay attention to this story, but just in the last week, I'm trying to find my notes here. iTunes, Netflix, and another major streamer backed out of deals involving big budget films with Will Smith, who was tapped as the star of the show. And one of those films was Bad Boys 4. Like, that's hundreds, probably like hundreds of millions of dollars is not out of the realm of consideration for what he would have made off iTunes and Netflix for those deals. For slapping somebody. That alone, it's one of two things. It's either they then are a part of cancel culture and accept that society is not kosher with the activity that went down, or they're ahead of the game and say they're part of the crowd disapproving of that activity, and they don't want to, they're distancing themselves from an individual who is a live wire. And in either case, that's the philosophical response that should happen, in my opinion. Philosophically speaking, what we do to others, we do to ourselves. Chris Rock doesn't have to worry about his next acting job. Chris Rock doesn't have to worry about his next season promo. If anything, Chris Rock probably has more opportunities. Will Smith, I'm hoping for Will Smith, frankly, I hope he never works again. I hope his career's done, and that in 10 to 15 years, he becomes the worst tale of VH1's Where Are They Now? That's what I want for Will Smith.
I don't wish that. I think that everybody deserves a chance at redemption. And that I'm just going to say, hoping that on somebody, to me, is the same thing that causes the violence in the first place. You know what I mean? Where I don't I don't want anybody to end up in a place just because they reacted some way. Now, I do want to kind of switch this to the idea of, are we innocent of violence because we don't personally do it? So, how are, if somebody displeases, if a culture is displeased by a person's actions, what do? There's the cancel culture, but there's also cops. You know, like, we create rules and stuff like that, and then we enact those rules. Like, I'm trying to think of a good idea thing, but like, I can't think of a specific example. But if we come up with how many laws do we have? We got over 10,000 laws. I can't even fucking name them all. And the cops don't even know them all. But when people violate our codes, we send the cops after. So,
hold that thought. Legally Insane News. We'll be right back.
when people violate our codes, we send the cops after them. So now, in most cases, I'm fine with that. You know, like, I know serial killers and they need to be behind bars, but that's not where it stops. And I think that our culture offsets their violence. I think that everyone is violent, or they want to be. They want to feel empowered to make the bad people go away. And bad is subjective. It could be just, unfortunately, for some people it could be blacks. Unfortunately, it could be the poor people. For some people, it could whoever the bad people are. They will do things to enact laws, to destroy reputations, to do all sorts of stuff. But they won't do it themselves because they know that looks bad on them, right? That looks bad when Will Smith goes up and slaps somebody. They're not going to do that themselves. They offset it. And so they offset, and that's what social media has definitely allowed us to see, is that people are still fucking ugly. They talk shit about everyone all the fucking time, and they offset stuff, and they create situations. And if anybody reacts to these situations, then come in the knights on white horses. Do you see where I'm going with that?
There's where I think you're going, or where I hear you going, is that there's a one fix all answer for every problem out there, and it has something to do with a regulation of a moray, and I don't agree with that. You can't.
What I want people to do is I want them to see themselves in all of this. You know what I mean? I think that there's a bit of hypocrisy going on. Just because one person slaps another person doesn't mean that you're different than that person. Because we literally condemn people all the fucking time and do things, actively do things to make their lives worse. But I think a lot of people don't actually see themselves doing it.
I don't think you've sufficiently grayed the line between physical violence and social or perhaps emotional violence. I don't think you've graded the line enough.
Levels. To me, they're different levels.
Well, okay, but so even if you're saying that the result is the same, right? Like, I get the argument that you're making, but I don't see that. Okay, and then I'll give you an example. When I was, how old was I? This is 1988. I was 9 years old. I was in third grade. This kid named Nicholas Elliott comes in with a backpack full of Molotov cocktail bombs and a Mac 11 9mm. He executes my bus driver. He fires off a bunch of rounds at a few other people just kind of walking around in corridors. He shoots my counselor 6 times in the chest, and then he goes into one of the middle or maybe high school rooms, the high school room, and he starts firing into the students. His gun jams, and he's tackled. long story short, he's sentenced to 116 years in prison. And I'm reminded of this because recently he went up for parole and was denied parole. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail if he does not meet the whatever state criteria for parole. He's going to spend the rest of his life in jail.
How old was he when he did this?
He was 16. Yeah. So when you and I chose this one because the backstory on it was he was the only black student in a Southern Christian school in the 80s.
Yeah.
I don't even need to say anything else, right? This kid caught like tons of shit.
Oh God, yeah.
But if you ask me what I feel about that, do I, where do I sit? I actually don't even know what my opinion is about it. I grew up, I had nightmares for a long time. It affected basically everybody in that school. I'm personalizing it, but there were so many people affected, and when he was 16, what, you were probably the same dumb kid I was when I was 16, which we didn't know shit. We had this tiny little world we lived in. I was getting harassed. My reputation is getting bashed. So I'm going to pay these motherfuckers back. And at the end of the day, you don't consider the fact that these people have parents, siblings, etc. He just what he wanted to do was inflict the most carnage as possible. And then when he was out of bullets, he was going to take those Molotov cocktail bombs and burn down the school. That's what he wanted. That was his plan. That's the 116 years. We see people getting much less sentences these days. And if I'm playing the race card, I'm the kids at Columbine wouldn't have gotten 116 years for killing something like 13 kids, because they were white.
I'm not ever going to stand up for what that kid did, and I do believe that the justice system has to give him 116 or whatever life, to send a message to everyone else. Now, my studies of criminality say that's called deterrence. Deterrence works to a certain extent, and so that's going to happen. I feel sorry for him. I do. I feel empathy for that person because I know exactly how he felt. But I didn't do that. And we can't allow people to just do that. There has to be consequences, without a doubt.
I guess so. Let me rein it in before we go too far out. By your definition that you just described before, the emotional pain that he felt is equivalent to the literal physical. Well, I mean, I guess also the emotional pain that the relatives of the deceased felt in that situation. When I hear you talk, that's the relationship that I make from that. So correct me if I'm wrong there, because basically you're saying that the same thing, basically what you're saying is that all the kids in school who ridiculed him and called him all kinds of racist names, they should be in jail based on the law of averages or equivalencies or whatever.
Well, I'm actually not saying anyone should be in jail. That's not what I'm saying. I want people to see what the fuck they're doing, when they condemn someone. I want people to see what they're doing. Now, and that's why I'm bringing this stuff up. I don't want to just condemn Will Smith because I don't want to just do that, because I think that's just the same type of attitude and the same type of thing going on. I want to try to understand all the different aspects. I don't think that for any reason that honestly, that whole situation sounds absolutely horrible. Now I'm going to say something that's really horrible now. And all I can think of is the African proverb: the tribe that does not show a child love will burn down when he wants to feel the warmth of the tribe. Did I get it wrong? I did get it wrong. But it's still, do you know what I'm saying? Like, that person was so fucking hurt by people. He was going to get something somehow. Now,
I don't know if you can put it there. I don't know if you can make that assumption. He could have had psychological problems. He could have had narcissism. He could have. He could have been a hormonal 16-year-old like the rest of us. You know, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But I think, what I'm asking for, I don't think it's ever going to happen. If we're going to talk about a modern society, what has to happen in this of civility? Like, we have all these laws so that we can try to lead ourselves as a group to civility. And yes, getting rid of physical violence in many ways, like thou shalt not murder, which literally means you don't kill somebody and take their stuff. All of that stuff. But I keep seeing people doing things that simply is bad stuff, but it's not as bad. You know what I mean? So the talking about other people and the other stuff that isn't illegal, and I'm like, well, just because that isn't illegal doesn't mean it's okay. You know what I mean? So there's I guess a sadistic part of me that kind of enjoyed when Will Smith slapped somebody for talking about their family, because I'm like, well, stop fucking talking about somebody's wife.
Well, okay, so but Chris Rock though, I mean, he's the least threatening man in Hollywood. And here's the other thing. Let's check this out. I bet that Will Smith would have sat there like a cuck bitch if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson made the same joke about Jada. He would sit there like a little bitch and not do jack shit.
I think I would respect Will Smith even more if he slapped the fuck out of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
It wouldn't have happened. Dwayne's got like a 1.5 feet on. Oh, actually, I have no idea how tall they are, but I mean, you know,
I think that would have got. I think we need to put them both in the ring and see what happens.
I would love to see that. I would love to see Will Smith get his fucking ass kicked.
And this is the Texan in me. I don't care who the fuck is talking about my family. I don't care if it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm still gonna fucking do it. But that's why I stay away from people. But I'm making a conscious choice not to be around people because I know how fucking evil people are.
Well, well, pause for a second, because like, what is Will Smith doing now? He's taking all kinds of shit, and he is sitting there like a good little bitch at this point, because like, he quit the Academy, right? They totally accept. I bet if he didn't, they would have yanked his award. And I'm like, I friggin' hate that they actually still let him keep the award. I hate that. He doesn't deserve that shit. He didn't just slap Chris Rock, dude. He slapped he slapped America. I don't really have much respect for the Academy, like the prestige of film and the prestige of great films and the emotive response people have to them. I think there was a need for the Academy to come around. However, since it was made, however long ago, actors, stars, etc., have been imparting a sense of self-importance it's become a pat each other on the back, ego stroking, circle jerk.
Well, that's all the Oscars is. It was all even made up. It was like, oh, we need to have something that makes us distinct in Hollywood from all the other studios.
Yeah.
So they created the Oscars. It's literally the most narcissistic fucking thing in the world.
Yeah. No. Yep. No argument there.
Fucking stupid. But like, actually, maybe that's what we need to be talking about. Actually, I did see Russell Brand talk about this whole incident. He's like, I'm not going to talk about any of these. I could be Jada, I could be Chris Rock, I could be Will Smith in any of these at any point in my life. But he just wanted to talk about how the Oscars itself is something, this pageant of pompous parading around and egos and BS that just fucking needs to stop.
Yeah. Okay. So you're gonna dislike the derailment here, but you might. The thing I find most depressing about the Rock Smith affair is that while the entire nation was consumed with a ridiculous Scientologist attacking a harmless, basically lovable figure, while all that was happening, the Biden administration managed to propose the biggest tax hike in history and the highest military budget in our nation's entire lineage. Right.
And also, what I was thinking is, while we're talking about all this foo-foo BS, fucking missiles are raining down on
Boom.
peaceful people in the fucking Ukraine because of some guy's ego and a bunch of shit happening on a fucking huge global scale.
And for our part, like what was that move about? Like, we're not at war. We're not being attacked by anybody. The Russians haven't like signaled a nuclear strike. And you know what? Even if they did, there'd be no need to beg Congress for funds if they attacked us. You know, like the president would have every resource at his disposal, and we'd have the support of every Western nation in the world.
Well, we have had our fingers in the Ukraine for a while, like through the IMF. And this is what started the war, is the IMF and the World Bank has been trying to get into the Ukraine for a while. And while the Ukraine was run by a Russian friend, then that person was overthrown and the democratic person was placed. Zelensky was, won, but he was also backed by American and business interests that want to free everything up for investments. So we are part of the war in Ukraine, without a doubt. It is us doing what we normally do, messing around and the business structure around the world. So that's why we have the huge tax hike in the military buildup, because we're protecting ourselves, because we're literally out doing stuff that's pissing other people off. So of course we're going to do that.
Yeah, but if that's business as usual, what's the problem? Why not?
Yeah, that literally is business as usual, but like it's starting to flare up. With my thing is, like, if you're going to piss somebody off, don't piss off the crazy guy down the street with the fucking huge guns. That's my rule. I'm not going to go piss that guy off. Why? Because he's got guns as big as mine. I don't have guns. Let me just say I don't have any fucking guns. But, like, I'm not going to piss off the fucking crazy guy. I don't agree with the crazy guy. I don't like the crazy guy at all. But he has gigantic fucking guns. I'm not going to go fucking piss that guy off.
Yeah, but that doesn't give the guy with big guns an excuse or a right to push people around. I mean, like, just because if it's just business as usual for us, why doesn't Russia respond in kind? Why don't they, like, separate?
Well, see, that's the thing. He's losing. It's like literally like what? This is gonna get weird. I'm not sure if I can hold this one up. But like, what if the really narcissistic, underhanded things that people do in society, like talking about other people and all of the covert shit that they do, works, and it pisses off the one guy like me, that's just like fucking can't take and doesn't play well like that, and can't win at that game. So what's that guy going to do? Well, he's got guns. He's got huge bombs and guns, and he's not winning at the business game, right? So what he decided to do was use his guns, because that's the only thing he has left. You know what I mean? I hear what you're saying, but what you... So, like, because literally we are doing financial overtaking of economic structures. In Ukraine, we have been doing it for a while.
Why hasn't that been a message out of the Kremlin since day one then? I mean, why hasn't it been a complaint of theirs?
Well, they should have, but they're just as fucked up as everyone else.
Well, that doesn't mean they don't know how to communicate. I mean, clearly they do know how to communicate because they're trying to force Europe to use the ruble.
Not winning the economic battle. You know, they're not winning. They're not. They were doing stuff that was working for them. Now it's not working for them because they didn't win. And so what happens when you back somebody who is powerful into a corner? Like, they've been trying to do diplomacy and trying to do the economic thing, although they totally fucked over Obama's friend there. I don't know if you know about the Costa Rican papers and all that stuff, but when the walls came down, investors started going into Russia. What happened is all the people who were in power in Russia came. They said, "Oh, you want to invest in Russia? You come, bring your money. Give me your money. Oh, now I have your money. Go fuck off." That's literally what they did to all of these investors. Then they hid the money in Costa Rica, and Obama did something that sanctioned somebody and cut them off from their money. That's why Putin and Obama don't get along. But anyway, it has to do with just people playing fucking money games. It's always about fucking money games. But the biggest thing besides that is that the Ukraine has tons of fucking physical resources. It is a fertile ground of agriculture. It has fuck tons of oil and natural gas. And of course, everybody's going to fight over it. So, but how are we fighting over it? How are we choosing to fight? And how are we choosing to do this stuff? Literally, the economic structures that we built, the neoliberal technocratic society that Wall Street runs, has got its fingers in Ukraine, and it has for a while, and it's starting to win. And it's putting Ukraine into debt, and that's what they do. They go put people into debt, and they say, well, if you borrow money from us, you can build up all your stuff, and you can be civilized like us, and you just pay us back, and it's all good and all that stuff. And then once they do, then we have them. And that's fine. That's just how it's going to be. Unfortunately, it destroys cultures and all sorts of stuff, but that's what's happening. But then Russia's like, well, we don't want that. We want to do that for ourselves. We want to control Ukraine. And so then they're like, but we are not winning at your game because our game fucking sucks. Because we're literally more mafious criminal activity type of people, and we're not good at all the sly fucking games. So literally, Russia's just trying to be the samurai that just stands out in the fucking field and fucks people up. And I always have this this metaphor of like there's two kinds of people in the world. There's ninjas and there's samurai. The ninjas always hide and manipulate things and stuff like that. They hide in the shadows, and the samurai just stands out in the fucking field and says, "Let's go." But literally, right now, the ninjas are winning. The covert people, the people manipulating behind the scenes, and that strife is now happening. It's coming to a head in Ukraine. And I do believe at some point it's going to ignite into World War III because they're fucking crazy motherfuckers. They have 1,000 more giant nuclear warheads than America does, and they can deploy them tactically. It's not mutually assured destruction anymore. It's now multiple strikes of nuclear devices in smaller ways. And I have a feeling you're going to see that very soon because we've backed them into a corner. And that's one thing I've learned to never do, especially in prison. I don't fuck with crazy people in prison. They don't fuck with me. I don't fuck with them. If there's a problem, okay, we're going to have a problem. But I know not to go fucking back some crazy ass fucking killer into a corner, because what's going to happen? He's going to fuck me up.
Well, that's why the phrase exists. Like, I get all that, but like, I don't think America is alone in backing anybody into a corner. Like, everybody's kind of on this feeding frenzy right now, where they're dredging the coffers of not just the American economy, but the European economy, the Asian economy, as much as they can. and basically separating the money from the people. It's like the bourgeoisie on a global level. I don't know how we got here from Will Smith, but like I'll run with it.
Well, these guys, the technocratic neoliberals, they don't even have governments. You know, like there's no government that can control these people. They have so much fucking control and so much money, and I'm not. You can call them the Illuminati, but that's a fucking joke at this point.
Right.
But the overtaking of society through these means, it's like, what do you do though? Like when you finally figure out, like, what if you are a good country? Actually, I do know that Yemen and Bolivia rejected the IMF terms. They didn't want to take the debt because they felt like that they would be controlled by the debt. And what happened to Yemen and Bolivia? Did you watch that in the news?
Yemen.
Yemen has been wiped off the face of the earth. And Bolivia, there was soon a coup afterwards. You can't even say no to these people. So, kind of back to the Will Smith thing. If people are doing, and I'm not, again, what Chris Rock said was nothing. But if people are doing manipulative, covert things that you are that are literally backing you into a corner, what do you do?
Well,
I don't know. Like myself.
You're talking. Do you think that Will? I mean, if we're talking about in context, if Will Smith backed Chris into a corner, what Chris did was very classy. He was like, "Holy shit! This dude just slapped the shit out of me."
Oh yeah, Will Smith. I mean, what Chris did was very classy, and he was a very quick-witted person, and he handled that perfectly fine.
And he's got America's sympathy in his back pocket as a result.
and I know that everything that I'm saying is just weird, but the small town Texan in me just says, I don't even care if I fucking lose at this point. If they're all coming to take everything I own and own me, I would rather die fighting. You know what I mean? Where I just, there's something about that covert manipulation that's going on that just scares the fuck out of me. And I just don't feel like being a slave to somebody else.
Yeah, but like, why attack Ukraine? I mean, is that really? Are they like? What you're basically saying is they're mounting a murderous, war crime ridden campaign against a country that, did not do anything. The closest thing to violating a Russian interest is tempting NATO to accept it under its wing. I mean, that's it.
Well, they did depose the original ruler of Ukraine. And
well,
I'm not saying
you know what happened like a month after, was it not Boris Yeltsin, Mikhail Gorbachev? He put Putin in power. Like he had tried to invade a couple of different places, and it failed. He just couldn't do it, probably because of the economic status of the USSR at that time. And then he put he put Putin in as prime minister, and within 1 month, Putin took care of business. He did what Gorbachev couldn't do. And he's doing it again.
Goddamn mafioso, like that guy. You don't fuck with him.
Well, he was the head of the KGB. Like, you don't get that role.
I'm not standing up for Putin at all. I'm saying he's a crazy guy down the fucking street. I'm saying he's the murderers that I
get it. What I'm saying is like he was the spearhead when he put him in. He was put in because he was a pit bull. Like the history of that is, when you and I were 10 years old is when all this shit went down. But I don't. What you're saying is that there's like a kind of a conspiratorial. I don't know. Like you're answering an attack on one front with an assault on another, like an offensive on another that doesn't really attack the issue. Like, Ukraine was a separatist colony. There are people in Ukraine that still kind of claim to be Russian. Sure, there's grounds for Russian support if you stretch a little bit, like if you give it a reach. But that reach does not equate to, hey, let's invade a country that has never invaded us. Like, what the fuck could Ukraine do to them anyway? Let's just say, like, Ukraine put, like, sanctions against Russia.
Putin is invading Russia not because of any of that stuff. Putin's invading Russia because our fingers are in it.
Putin's invading Ukraine.
That's what he's doing. What's that?
You said Putin's invading Russia. Putin has no need to invade Russia.
Yeah, he's invading Russia. Putin's invading Ukraine because our fingers are in it. Our fingers are directly tied to being in it.
I don't know, man. Like, I think Putin has had a big problem with NATO moving further and further east. And NATO was about to take in the Ukraine.
He also wants the old USSR, too. You know, he's nationalistic, prideful, and he wants the old USSR. He wants that old way of life.
But that still has nothing to do with invading another country in lieu of being able to attack Americans. Hold that thought. Legally Insane News. We'll be right back.
Way of life.
But that still has nothing to do with invading another country in lieu of being able to attack Americans. I'm still missing the connection.
Well, the connection is okay, here's the big question. If our fingers weren't in it, if our fingers weren't trying to get into the Ukraine and get the resources out of it through the IMF, right? That's exactly what's happening. Would he leave the Ukraine alone? My guess is probably so. If it was just the Ukraine, just being the Ukraine and working with Russia as an economic partner, and everybody was just, working with everybody else, I think that Putin would just leave the Ukraine alone, because what's the point of attacking them?
Well, what's the point? What's the point of not? So, what's the point of not simply just appealing to the International Monetary Fund and Wolf Blitzer's, the Wolf Blitzer era cabinet that you sort of ran it, right? Like, why not just appeal? I mean, they were on the International Peace Treaty.
Nothing.
They were on the board of the International Peace Treaty up until.
To the cops going, they're not my friends anymore, and they're creating allies with each other, and they're just gonna create their own economy over there, and they're not gonna share with me. And then going to the cops and going, can you stop them from doing that? Because it's gonna hurt me. And the cops are gonna go, no, you just gotta play them at their game.
Okay, so let's put it in a neighborhood. Like, let's say House A is you. You were separated from houses B, C, and E. House D is Putin's house. He's the guy with the big guns. If he's got a problem with you, why does he invade why does he invade House D, his immediate neighbor?
Oh, because I'm in House A, but I talked to the guy in house. Which house are we talking about?
There's only 4.
So if he had a friend and he has an economy with the house next to him, right? And he has a friend, and they have a little alliance, and they trade with each other and stuff like that. And then I go over and I start trading with his neighbor, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I see that you're trading with Putin too, and that's cool and all. But like, I was wondering if I could secure some more of your stuff.
That still doesn't work because Russia is still trading with Poland. They're still trading with Belarus. They have an international lockdown on oil. Happening. So like why not? Why didn't they?
What was happening was an economic takeover of the resources in the Ukraine, though. So we were putting the Ukraine in major amounts of debt, and promising them this and promising them that, like we do in every other fucking country too. And they'll get the money as long as we get the resources. And that put Russia at a disadvantage. They lost in that business transaction there. So now you have a jealous neighbor. You know, like fucking don't.
He's got a
If you're
hot
gonna make
wife.
somebody jealous, make sure they don't have huge fucking guns.
I love how our conversation just moved from the Oscars to international finance
But
ripoff.
really, what we're talking about is violence and power and manipulation.
Fair enough.
and it's all
That's a
the same
true
thing.
vein that's run through every.
It's
part of this
literally
conversation.
just human nature. Like it's all in it. Like, and it's so strange that at 45, I'm starting to finally see all the different types of power and manipulation. I personally, like, I love this. I'll go back to the ninja and the samurai. I personally would rather just be a samurai. Let's just fucking put it all out in the open. And even if I lose the fight, at least I feel like I have some kind of stupid honor. And I'll even say it's stupid. I don't even give a fuck anymore. Like, I'll say it's stupid. I'm tired of the nitpicking and the talking behind people's backs and the little ninjas throwing the little stars from the shadows. It's driving me fucking
But
insane.
if nobody had pride in the first place, and I'm not talking about nationalistic pride, I'm not talking about sports pride, you're proud of your team or your son
Like
or
ego.
your family member.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the
Nobody
ego.
has ego.
If people let the fuck go of their ego, reputation doesn't matter. Rumors don't
Well,
matter. Talking
I
shit
get
about somebody's
that, but,
wife
you know,
doesn't
that
matter
only
because you
works
are
if
above it and you're better than that. And you can take somebody's comment and be like, that doesn't mean anything. It's
Well,
just, and it
that's
works the
nice.
same, and it works same for the opposite direction. Like, like if I give you, if I slant you, or your, I don't know, your mom, I don't know, give you like your mama's so fat she got titties on her back, right? You and me are gonna go fight in a courtyard. But what if I give you, oh my God, you are such an amazing person. Look what you did in this, thing that I now find important, right? One is the equidistant equivalent to the other in terms of the ego. Like if you just take happy versus sad out of it, obviously one is preferable to the other. One comment is preferable to the other, but that's only based on the ego, right? If you don't accept either one and you just, the only person that you're ever in competition with is your older previous self that you're now better than, hopefully, if you're maintaining progress throughout your life, then you never have to worry about what anybody else has to say.
I used to live by that philosophy through most of my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, I was just like, hey man, if you got an issue, you do you. You can say whatever the fuck you want about me. I don't give a fuck. I will just go somewhere else. But in my 40s and going through my marriage and my divorce and understanding some certain economic things and yada, 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 I've gotten to the point where I feel like I'm that like in school again, where there's nowhere I can go anymore. Like I can try to be the nice guy all I want. And there's like a whole movement now. I don't know if you've read the No More Mr. Nice Guy book, but like being a nice guy is not as good as it used to be. I used to be able to turn my cheek and like, as long as I could go somewhere else, but I can't go anywhere else anymore. I keep running out of places. Like at this point, I can't even be nice to my ex-wife because I'll lose my fucking kids. And I'm not about to let that happen. You know what I mean?
What do you mean you can't be nice?
Well, I have to I'm not saying that I'm being unkind. That's not what I'm saying. I have to learn to stand up for myself. I can't walk away from situations anymore. I have to fight for things that I never would have fought for in my life. Now I'm fighting for my children. Just like she wants to go to Wisconsin and take the kids with her. And I'm like, no. And it's getting, like people all my life, they got to know me as this really kind guy that, works with people and all of that stuff. And I became a Mr. Nice Guy. And I thought that if I worked with people and I did all of this stuff and I just ignored insults and I got rid of my ego, that I would be making a better world. The only problem with that is other people aren't doing the same thing.
And so now we come full circle where no matter what you do, other people, if you give it to them, will take that power. That's the point I was trying to nail home the entire conversation. Thanks so much for volunteering that.
What was that?
I said thanks so much for volunteering that. Like, that's the point. That's the whole point I was trying to make the entire conversation. Like, if you give them power, they will take it. That's the bottom line on that. But what you're saying is you have to fight. You have to tooth and nail claw your way into what is yours, i.e., ownership, not ownership, but, I guess ownership in the legal sense of your kids, right?
Yeah, like I literally have to be extremely careful with everything I say, be extremely careful with what I do, be extremely careful about my reputation.
And so is that what fueled your response to the
called on me, and shit like that, like, because my reputation's so bad, my past is so bad, any little slight, the cops will come arrest me. So I can't get angry, I can't raise my voice, I can't do anything because everybody thinks I'm this big abusive guy. And you know me, I'm not abusive. But like there's literally nothing I can do anymore except for really, really, really try to not get into fights, but at the same time stand up for myself. And honestly, I don't really know how to do that. Like, I'm lacking in so many ways.
I feel like I should edit that out.
Yeah, there's some part of that you should edit out.
Yeah. Well, but, so I would agree. I've never known you to be. I have always known you to be. I was going to say level-headed, but that's really not the phrase. You I think get set off by shit, but not to an inordinate degree. Like not outside the normal scope of what society generally would do anyway.
And that's under Donald Glover's nice guy syndrome. That kind of falls in line where I keep a very level head and I give everybody respect.
You did kind of make some weird demands of me when I was in the running. When you were running things.
I don't remember this.
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I actually sometimes I do admit I'm not very conscientious. I don't sometimes realize how people see what I do, but I don't really know. I don't know. I think we all have our implied contracts too. Like we all seem to imply like what we expect of people, and I don't always understand that of me.
Well,
but,
okay, so
I always see myself as being like a nice guy that tries to work with people. I don't really get angry at people often, but when I do, like I have to watch out. I'm 6'6", I'm 260 pounds, and I have the notoriety of having been to prison. So I literally can't raise my voice because even if I do that, everyone gets scared.
You're like Shrek, only like not a cartoon, and like your farts aren't cute.
Exactly. You just nailed the fucking thing on the head. I literally can't fucking do anything unless I'm the nicest guy in the world and doing all this stuff to hold this nice guy facade because like I'm terrified of losing everything because of all of this.
Well, you only had one kid when I met you, and you were still married, and as far as I recall, everything was kosher and happy. So,
when
but
it fell apart fast.
yeah, that's how it happens.
I think we are kind of there where everybody has become so polarized, so individualized. And by individualized, I say egotistical. Like, and I will accuse myself.
The
I'm going to be a
snowflake factor.
hypocrite. Like, but I'm definitely saying that from, I don't want to pick on feminists too much, but like from feminists to political things to whatever, we've lost the ability to actually relate to each other, and everybody's just at everyone else's throats. And at some point, I just want to fucking slap somebody. Like, don't fucking talk about my family. Don't fucking talk about me. Stop fucking attacking me. I'm trying to be a fucking nice guy. And the more that I try to say that, the more they attack me. I'm like, oh my God, is everybody a fucking vampire?
I like how you set up what the problem was and then exemplified what the problem was just then.
Sometimes I guess you have to be the problem in order to fix it. I don't know.
I heard someone say that nobody can be sane in an insane world, and
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense
because you can't fight a monster unless you become one.
If you rewind the tape, even 10 years, what is going on right now would be seen as totally, inescapably, foreign to our understanding of the world. And yet people are being hauled off to jail for printing shit in a newspaper or for, just having a dissenting view. I mean, when I think I posted a meme, I'd love to pull this meme back up because it makes a lot of sense in the current context. It's basically like there's it doesn't do it sideways. Now I'm going to have to read it sideways because my phone's fucking sideways. Oh, it's not on, it's on my Twitter. Anyway, it's basically like, when society declines the truth, that's the first step. The second step is they rail you. And then the next step is, the last step, I guess I'm just going to forward through because I'm tired as shit. I've been up for 24 hours at this point. Is basically by the time the truth is actually on here we go. First we overlook evil, then we permit evil, then we legalize evil, then we promote evil, then we celebrate evil, then we persecute those who still call it evil. And that's the evolution of the understanding of our current social spectrum. And I actually stole that meme from somebody like Janelle Carrison. I read it and I was like, fuck yeah, these are current world facts. That's what that is. And that's the understanding we're in society today. Everybody actually realizes that the world is crazy. It's going crazy right now. You throw in a pandemic, you throw in economic, 2 economic stimulus checks that you can't do anything with. You throw in the world economy just absolutely turning on its head. At the end of it all, and we're not at the end, but at the most recent, turn of everything, a nuclear power invades a small country that used to be part of its country, part of it, part of the Federation. I mean, like you were saying, I guess we might end up in a really nasty spot. Who knows where it's going to end up, but it really has taken a dive. Everything that I have seen from the major global, almost universal understanding of conflict on an international level, down to the family level. When I got back to the States, in 2017, the fall of 2017, maybe summer, actually, I had to leave the American University in Bulgaria to take care of my mom. I had no idea when I got home that she had become addicted to OxyContin. She'd gone through like a handful of surgeries on her foot. She was completely lost. She was paranoid. She was accusatory. I do not speak to my mom to this day because the last thing she tried to do was have me arrested for locking my door to stay away from her. Like it was really, really bad. And that is all the way down to the family level, man. Like all the way down to there. We're at this weird friggin' paradigm shift where we just can't, you and I get along. What the fuck? We got to be doing something right? I mean, like, why can't everybody just have a conversation about shit we disagree about without, I mean, I have no initiative to like hop in my car with a sniper rifle and take you out because you disagree with something that I said. And I'm assuming you don't feel the same about me, even though at the end of the day, we are not in agreement on many of the points in this conversation. Like, why is that so strange that is the...
Here's the thing, though, is like you and I were just having a discussion. I don't think that besides the basic stress that we're all going through, there's nothing on the line here. I hope your podcast as well, and I hope many other things. But
you were talking about reputation, right? Is being wrong not a part of what like something that contributes to your reputation? Like,
well, yeah. And the only thing is, here's the problem with my reputation. I literally don't care about it.
That's just so counter to everything you've just said, like up until now.
I know it is. And I think everything that I just said is also coming from a place of maybe my life would have turned out better if I cared about reputation more. Because like, literally, I went through the shit in high school, and then I left. I was able to leave. And as I said, I lived in a very zen way for about 20 years. And then I tried to actually do something and, like, get up the ladder in my life. Whenever you do that, though, then you take on all sorts of stresses. Because you're trying to get more money, you're trying to build a career, you're trying to, establish a family within a social circle, and then now everything fucking starts going sideways. And literally, Katie used to get pissed at me because I didn't give a fuck about what people thought of me. I was just like, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Like, they can think whatever the fuck they want to think. I don't fucking give a shit. And I realize now, maybe I should have given a shit. I don't know. I can't answer that for myself very well. But there is a part of me that is literally like, okay, now that I've gone through all of this fucking shit, and I could literally lose my career, I've already lost my family, I don't want to lose my kids, I really don't want people talking shit about my life. I want people to shut the fuck up. And that's why I did that's why I said all that stuff about Will Smith. Again, I'm not behind Will Smith. I think he made a fucking terrible decision. But I kind of like the fact that he slapped the shit out of somebody.
Well, you saying that would have been a hell of a lot better to start off with. No offense.
But like, I literally want to slap the shit out of somebody now, because like my reputation has been fucking completely just absolutely annihilated, and I'm like, fuck, I should have slapped the shit out of somebody. I guess I should have done that. I tried not to.
Who are you gonna slap, Sean? Come on.
Just called on me. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I don't know either, man. Like, even then I wouldn't have, like, let's put it into the current statement. Like, if you went up and slapped your ex, I would have lost the same amount of respect for you that I did for Will.
Yeah. Well,
even though she went after you, like, that's the difference. Like, what's his name? Chris Rock did not go after anybody. He made a very, it wasn't even, like asinine is such a strong word for it. It was like, it was mild. If it was a salsa,
Yeah, I think
it would be
he just
mild.
played neutral. He played it as classy as you can play it. There was a video breakdown that I did see. I saw like some guy doing the body language reading on everybody, and it was kind of funny. You could totally see Jada Pinkett Smith getting offended.
Oh yeah, yeah.
First,
I saw
Will
that too.
Smith didn't even fucking notice, and then he fucking noticed that his wife was pissed.
Yeah, he
And
looked
then
over. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I shouldn't be laughing. I'm going to get up now.
Fuck, I fucked up. I gotta do something.
I'm not getting
And
laid
then-
tonight, so I better slap somebody in front of a global audience.
Look at it. But
Like, also, who
you
the fuck
actually
cares
see-
about Jada Pinkett Smith? Like, no offense to Jada. She's probably a great person. She's a nice actor, right? But did you see her at the thing when she was like, she literally had to carry her own dress like a baby. Like, like you think of yourself as that fabulous that you carry your fucking clothes in and you primp them up so that people can, like, you know, take your glamour shot for you in front of the
talking about
the
the
Academy
Oscar.
sign. Like,
But
fuck
anyway, what I
you.
was trying to get to was Chris Rock. What actually made a fist? You know, when he got slapped, if you look at his reaction, his initial reaction is he made a fist, and he was going to come back. But then he's very quick-witted and very smart. He went, "Oh, I need to let this go."
I don't think he was pissed. I don't think that at all. And I would disagree with somebody who made commentary about that on the video that you're referencing. I think anybody's immediate knee-jerk reaction to getting their face impacted by the back or front of somebody's hand, that's going to make you squint. That's all he did. He squinted, and then his recovery, as kind of like you're talking about the lineage of those frames. His recovery was shock. It was like, holy shit, and he exemplified that shock. Huh?
If you look at his right hand, he did make a fist for a second, and then he let it go. But yeah, he did have the look of shock on his face with his head turned. Then he made a fist. Then he let it go.
You can't say that making a fist is not wincing. Part of like squeezing up is like, you imagine the dude's butthole. It was squeezed up, right? Like his body tensed up. I think when you tense up, you make a fist. You might not realize it, but he sure as shit wasn't thinking, "Oh man, I need to punch Will Smith now."
Yeah, I think that's just an unthinking reaction. But I think he's smart, and that he just simply let all of that go, and then he came up with an interesting joke saying, well, that's going to be one of the TV's greatest moments.
Yeah, we're making good TV here. Like, every sphincter in his body, though, his nose, his mouth, and again, I don't mean to reference Chris Rock's butthole too much here, but like every sphincter in his body would wince up upon impact. Come on, no. I really want you to picture Chris Rock's butthole right now. Just imagine what that looks like. Post Will Smith coal cocking. Anyway, all right. Well, let's kill this one. I'm running out of sunlight here, and I'm off grid, so I gotta shut the batteries down. But as always, it's been interesting.
I'm always gonna throw the weird thoughts at you. That's for sure.
That's okay. You know, I don't think I would have been interested in having a podcast if you agreed with me. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt, I actually think that this is a dialectical discussion, and yeah, definitely. Like, half the shit I say sometimes is weird. I'm actually still processing it myself when I'm saying it, but you know, there are certain things that, you know, again, you know, just sort of pop up in me, and I need to process those.
Yeah.
As like, you know, do we need to sometimes stand up and be more man? Maybe not slap people, but, you know, maybe there was a time for that in our time. I don't know.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day at that point. After that part in our conversation. We kind of trail off into more politics than anything, but I do hope that you've enjoyed this round of talks. I know it's different than my normal kind of show, but if you like listening to two dudes responsibly disagree, let me know in the comments wherever you're seeing this, if it's the video, or on my Twitter account at Kyle O'Donnell or at Justice_pod. Please follow me on both, since I do want good people telling me where to bring the show. If that's what you like, I'll do more of it. Thanks so much for listening. I'm your host, Kyle O'Donnell. We'll see you next time.